Is this new channel that passed the remotes? I don't expect too many people on, only because we're still trying to get traction and people are trying to jump over. So I'd like to introduce the new channel. Why did we do it? Why we're here? And what we plan to do on this channel moving forward. So the first question many of you probably have is, wait a minute, why are you not live streaming on your own channel? And it has everything to do with the YouTube algorithm. The issue is we love live streaming. The problem is if we put it on our own channel, what it does is YouTube starts promoting the live stream. So even when we put great content out, they're promoting the live stream. Like, wait a minute, this live stream is no longer relevant. It's like 2 weeks old and YouTube's still trying to get people to watch it, right? But then on the flip side, if we either unlist it or take it private, there's some good content that you guys might want to look into it, because there are a lot of great questions that I index. But then we have this, being stuck in a rock and a hard place where on the one hand, we think live streaming is really helpful to the audience, right? We answer your questions and we want to share those answers. But then the minute we put in all that effort with you guys and we shut it off and unlist it, we take away a lot of quality content. So what we've done is started a live stream channel that allows us to live stream as often as we want without jeopardizing the alerts and the notices of our regular channel. Because what Brandon discovered is every time we live stream, he puts out some amazing videos and it's buried. It's like, where'd it go? No one ever saw my videos. And I was like, yeah, I noticed that too. I'm putting out videos that only started after we started live streaming, right? And I think a lot of other creators are noticing this, and that's why you're going to see a lot of people just putting aside a channel just for live streaming. And it allows you all to be able to isolate and narrow it down. Hey, I want to be on this channel. It has a lot of live streams. I know what to look for. And then it also doesn't add too much noise on our main channel. So we'll continue to do what we do on our channel. But this channel is kind of like the crazy talk live stream. Whenever we could do it any time of the day, unpredictably. Brandon might feel lonely one day, go, hey, I got a live stream. Who's available, right? Or I'm like, hey, you know what? It's 2 a.m. What's happening in Australia? But doing that, right, we don't kind of put at risk the content. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this live stream channel, Brandon?
I think it's awesome. I think it's a good idea. I definitely noticed, we did a little test, like when I had the video, the A90J unboxing video, and it was just cruising along, and I did a live stream on a Wednesday, and all of a sudden for the next, during the live stream in the next few hours, it just tanked. And then as soon as I unlisted that live stream, it went back up. And it's like, so we have to just balance all this. I mean, obviously I have a good amount of people. I did a poll that were like, reviews were number 1. And then number 2 was the live streams. Number 3 was, installation videos, and 4 people were like everything. So there's a good amount of people that don't want to watch that. And typically you just can't get the larger following to watch the live streams, but the larger following will watch your normal videos. So definitely helps to have your own live stream channel. This is a great idea. I think you came up with the name after we failed on many other options. I think what was my son's favorite? What was that really funny one?
Was it something Bebop TV?
Yeah, Bebop TV. My son was like, no, do not. My dad, he was like embarrassed for me. He's like, don't do Bebop TV, just anything but that. So we were just messing around with names. Finally, Pass the Remotes is pretty good. I like it.
And it's open-ended, right? Anything with remote control, whether it's a Chromecast or an AVR or TVs, if it's got a remote control, it's something that we can talk about, review.
Hey, Jonah, what's up? How you doing, Jonah? Thanks for jumping on. He's, a lot of people, since we've kind of talked about this, a couple of people, I think Keep It Classy is going to have his own kind of like streaming channel, gaming channel, where he could do games if needed and all that. So yeah. So, and but anyways, definitely happy to jump on and join in. And yeah, some people were complimenting that I had nice hair in my video that I did, the settings of the A90J. So, hey, I figured I'd go. We actually going to a birthday party after. So we'll do the hour here or whatever, and then jump off even whenever you got to go.
Share the agenda with you today real quick.
So so right now I have controls because I didn't do it right. So I set the stream up under my StreamYard account, but then added the channel. But he already made a own streaming account for this one. So basically, he has no control today. Only I have.
I have no control.
I'll have to take the lead on this, but he's got the PowerPoint, so we'll let FOMO talk.
Yeah. Well, it's just something that Everyone wants to know what's happening in the world of TVs. And I did a similar poll, and people just want to be kept up with, hey, if I buy a TV now, is there something coming up? Or is there a problem with a TV? And so what we'll talk about today, and you guys, anytime, throw in your Q&A, and we'll talk about that as well. The 50-inch size is VA greatness. 55-inch size, not. X95J specs are not impressive, but so we have some early specs from the Chinese reviews of the X95J. We're going to assume the global release are all similar TVs from Sony. The Sony X95J. OLED panel shortage in 2024. What does that mean? So the elect is predicting OLED panel shortages. And of course, the theme of today's video, large TVs, cheap TVs, which one? So we kind of have a huge spectrum of TVs that we've been reviewing over the last several months, from the most expensive OLED, the 83-inch. Well, actually, technically, the most expensive one's probably the 8K or the rollable. But for most of us that are realistically looking at image quality, it is the 83-inch A90J for between $7,000, $8,000, depending on when you're getting it, or Black Friday. And then you have cheap TVs where a lot of people are like, you know what, this is my third TV. I don't need it to be awesome, but I still don't want to get ripped off and get a bad El Cheapo TV, right? So we'll talk about the end, and I'll just jump into that. Okay, 50-inch size is VA greatness. So this is something that I did a quick review on. A lot of people were saying, hey, you guys don't review cheap TVs enough. And I thought, you know what? You're right. And I was talking to Brandon about this, is although we love the better TVs, right, the more expensive ones, at the end of the day, not everyone has that $1,000 budget. These TVs are all $700 or less, and they're all 50-inch size. And it turns out the 50-inch size is uniquely a VA panel, not an IPS panel for the Sony X80J. So in this video, I felt that the Sony X80J, and it was a shootout between the X80J, the Q60A, and the Hisense U6G. All three TVs are under 700, with the Sony and the Samsung around 700, just $1, right? Under 700, and the U6G a few bucks under 500. And I wanted to see how low can we go before image quality is compromised, and I won't recommend a TV. And it so happens that for me, for my purposes, I felt that the Sony X80J was very awesome, but I should have emphasized that at the 50-inch size, the Sony X80J, the reason why it's so awesome and why it's not consistent with ratings findings. So if you go in ratings, you look at X80J, go, what? The X80J has a terrible ratings score. And so it should be, because any other size is not a VA panel. It's an IPS panel. And many of you called to my attention in the video, so I made sure to pin that up. If you're getting the X80J, based on this review, it has to be the 50-inch size, because unlike the other sizes, it is a VA panel, like the Q60A, like the U6G. But the X80J on any other size will be IPS, which is what ratings reviewed. They reviewed the larger, I think 55-inch size. That was an IPS panel. And as we all know, most of us just like IPS panels. It's dim, it's washed out, many reasons. But the X80J was none of those things, because, well, it's a VA panel. And that's why I was so impressed. So that was my shootout selection. But remember, it's a VA panel. And this is kind of goes to what I've been talking to ratings about earlier with Alex. Like, this year, the same model, different sizes with different technologies that are so significant as to push the review completely 180 from not recommended to recommended, and vice versa, depending on the size you get. And it's a bit confusing for consumers. Brandon, have you been facing any of those complaints with your viewers about the different size and size quality?
I mean, you get a lot of, I get a lot of people just asking me, like, will this be the same in a larger size, or, and to be honest, a lot of the times with the new TVs, I got to look myself, I have to figure out, this is kind of like the first year really where they've been doing the IPS for larger sizes. I mean, was it just LG that did that before, or were they pretty much IPS all the way on those, on those sizes?
Same with LG. Some LG sizes are VA panels. So yeah, even though they want to do IPS, so let's talk about the 50-inch size. This is why my title for this slide is 50-inch size is VA greatness. Almost every TV that's a 50-inch size, that's, let's say, above $700 or above $500, it's going to be a VA panel, because the only supplier of 50-inch sizes is supplying it in the VA technology. So if you want, so if the TV maker wants an IPS panel in a 50-inch size, they're not going to get it. That one panel manufacturer that will supply an LCD TV 50-inch size is only supplying the VA panel. So what does that mean? Those of you who know this and are in the market for a 50-inch size, you're in luck. If you end up choosing a TV that is normally IPS, becomes a 50-inch size, now I'm not guaranteeing it. I'm sure there may be an exception somewhere, but more likely than not, that 50-inch size ends up being a VA. And in this case, if you're in the market for a Sony 50-inch size, budget's around $700, this ends up being a great TV. And I'm telling you, that color was knockout. It was just so good out of the box, right? None of these TVs were calibrated. And I was so impressed at how well the Sony did. And I keep on telling myself, wait a minute, it's a VA panel. It's not supposed to be a VA panel. It should be an IPS. But in this case, you make out like a bandit. But on the other hand, if you go 55-inch, right, where are you then? You're going to end up with a size that's not, or a TV that is not consistent with what many who are promoting the 50-inch size. And you're going to see this on many reviews, whether it's Best Buy or Amazon. You're like, wait a minute, how can the same TV have such widely disparate star ratings, right? Like on Best Buy, I noticed some of the larger sizes have many more stars than the smaller sizes, but same TV. And it may be larger sizes have more vertical banding, more quality control issues. I mean, there's so many differences now from size to size that not only do you have to be very cautious of the model you're getting, but the size you're getting as well. And so this just adds to the confusion. It's so important for us to kind of talk it out on these kind of live streams, because unless you're really deep into the woods with these details, getting the wrong size may end up getting you a TV that's not as what you expected based on the reviews. Like I'm reviewing 65-inch, Brandon's reviewing 55-inch, and then maybe Ratings has a different size, and all three of us have different views of the exact same TV, but different sizes, and they're all right. So that's pretty crazy, I think.
Definitely. And it's interesting to me because, and then your review is interesting too on that, because I've noticed that if you look at some of the Sony 8 series or 75 series Sonys, they do look pretty good per the competition, you know, like for the similar prices, you know, and in some of the Samsungs, they lose a lot of brightness, and then they're just not, you know, they lose a lot of the HDR flash. But yeah, I watched that video. I watched the whole thing. It's a pretty good video.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, and it's one of those things where, you know, although it doesn't get all of the attention, because, you know, it doesn't get a lot of views, but in the long term, I still think it's helpful, because a lot of people, 50-inch size is a size that's forgotten because of the inferiority of sizes smaller than 55-inch, right? Well, with the exception of the QN90A, which I am impressed that they did come out with a smaller size, but for the most part, it's the no good size as far as quality. You're end up with the TCL4 series, or maybe the 5 series, or the A6G Hisense, which is an interesting one, where the Hisense A6G 75-inch size, outrageously high rating. But then you go to the smaller sizes, people hate it. I'm like, that is very interesting. It's so hard to make these recommendations now without being specific with the sizes. So yeah, so let me jump through next topic. Okay. A lot of people were holding their breath for the X95J, the Sony. And these are some of the initial reviews. It's in Chinese. And of course, I'm assuming we're going to get very similar TVs. But as you've seen, even regionally, maybe some regions get VA panels. Some regions are getting IPS panels. It's happening with Samsung. Even though they're all QN9 series, you got QN95, QN90, QN94. And then some of them, like in Europe, the QN90 is an IPS panel, except with the 50-inch, right? It ends up being VA panel. There's so much confusion with the Samsung lineup. Is this going to happen with the Sony? I don't know. But just look at the specs right here. It looks like the X95J brightness is very similar to the X90J. So X90J for sure raised its game. But in the X95J, it is not the super bright TV we've all been holding our breath for. Now, the SDR, it is a little bit brighter than the X90J, but in HDR, I'm not seeing it. No, these are the specs from the Chinese model. So
It's,
just
yeah, it's
something to keep.
kind of hard to see that. Maybe you can explain what I can't see what they
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
Maybe
Let me
people
see
can.
if I can blow
What
it up a
do
little
you
bit here.
have, or just give us like the info?
Yeah, yeah. It is. Let me up real quick. So the X95J SDR is about 1100 nits. X90J SDR is 850 nits. So that jump makes sense. But in the HDR, peak brightness on X95J is 1200 nits, just above 1200. The HDR peak brightness on the X90J is about 1100. Okay. At that brightness, 100 nits difference technically is not noticeable or visible to the human eye, right? The difference between 1100 and 1200 nits, it's just a decimal point. You're not going to notice that. And that's something that concerned me because I was hoping it'd be closer to maybe 1600 nits, like the QNED. Now, XR processing may change things. So this is why I put a big but. X95J specs are not impressive, but two things. One, region specific, we may be getting, hopefully, different specs, maybe different technology, and more importantly, in real content, what I've noticed is that Sony really has made a difference with the XR chip in real content that may not be reflected in these sort of measurements where you're looking at windows and boxes. So, but that's just something to whet your appetite before we get the actual TV. And large OLED panels likely to face a shortage in 2024. What? Why shortage? So if you've got all have noticed, the OLED panels are actually going down in price more and more. This makes it more accessible to the population, and suddenly people are like, whoa, this actually looks really good. I don't care if it's a 60 hertz panel. I love OLED. I'm going to just buy it and hang it up on my wall, right? Because OLED just looks great. It looks phenomenal, period. Even if you're not watching movies and you're just cycling through images, those deep blacks make a huge difference just as a digital display. And so they're going to see more and more uses for large OLED panels that aren't the cutting edge of TV technology, right? It's not 4K 120. Many people, just like you saw with the wall or the frame or the Zero, they're getting the TV for many other reasons in addition or aside, image quality aside, everything else may be more important. And all these additional applications of large OLED panels for TVs, they're going to see a lot more interest from many manufacturers. And that leaves Samsung yet to announce that they've embraced LG's OLED panels. But even if Samsung doesn't buy up LG's OLED panels for their own use, unless LG starts rolling out more factories and, well, which they're doing right now. So they're building more factories based on this projection that by 2024, if they don't build more factories, there will be a shortage, which obviously they don't want that. And so they're starting to put out plans to build factories just wherever they can find it. China, maybe Korea. And they're quite excited. Finally, people are getting it because OLED prices have dropped. And that kind of leaves us seeing what you've seen with the frame. Would you get a 60 hertz OLED panel?
I don't think I would get a 60 hertz OLED panel. And I'm also a bit skeptical about opening more Chinese plants with the kind of like banding that they've had with their current OLED. So it's like, it's awesome that OLEDs are becoming more popular, but they need to make sure that the quality control stays up. And yeah, I don't think that it's worth it. I mean, if you could get a cheap OLED panel with 60 hertz, that's great. But I feel like everyone wants, I mean, how cheap could they really make a 60 hertz OLED panel? Could they make it $500? I mean, like legitimately, like who knows?
And it's not even that cheap, right? The current 60 hertz panel, the A1 is like what, $200 less than the C1? Like what?
It was the same price as the C10 at Costco. So you could buy an A1, which is a 60 hertz, and that has the older processor too. Or the C10, which has the same processor, but 120 hertz in gaming and 4K at 120 and all that, FreeSync, G-Sync. So it's not even close. Like I would never recommend the A1,
Not even close. You're right. And let's see. Here we go. All right. Now, large TVs, cheap TVs, which ones? How do you want to start with this, Brandon? Like, you want to start with the large TVs? Because I think pricing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'll put up this one comment Joe had asked, and I'd popped it on before, but like this is the kind of thing that I could start out with this real quick because I have been thinking about this quite a bit. And so what the people that are on the stream will get my take on it. I'm going to make a video about this, but I have the 83-inch A90J, and it's awesome. But I also have seen the 77-inch A80J, and I think it looks fantastic. So you can currently buy two A80Js at the 77-inch and still have money left over for the one A80J 83-inch. So it is really hard to tell people, even with having the TV and even loving it, it's just not worth it. I mean, it can't be worth it for most people. There's just no way. So the differences in these two TVs primarily are that the 83-inch has a heat sink, like he had said, and that's larger. And then in addition, it has, you know, a little bit better speakers. So it's slightly better. And I believe that it has the speaker wire. I know the 83-inch has the speaker wire for the input. And I think the A80J just has like some sort of unique or proprietary like input. Yeah. And it's not a 3.5 or something. I don't know. People have said that they can't. Sometimes there's a 2.5. I noticed that like some Harmony remotes have a 2.5 millimeter jack. And so I had a hard time fitting the 3.5 in that. But then there's not much difference. It's slightly brighter. The remote, you know, it has a backlit remote where the A80J does not have a backlit remote. And besides that, there is not much difference. It's slightly brighter, but the A80J, if you go into a Magnolia store and check out that A80J, it's remarkable. It has 4K at 120 and it looks amazing. So that's kind of my take on that, Joe. I feel like for most people, the A80J is the better choice at that size, just because it's so much less expensive.
And it also kind of takes us to a recent comparison from ratings, right? Is the G1 worth the premium over the C1? Exact same issues. Like, okay, everyone's saying the G1 has these minor additional specs, slightly brighter, maybe slightly better color or near black. But at the end, they're like, nah, it's not worth it. I mean, they recognize that it's better, but they're like, you're not going to see it. With the exception of those enthusiasts who turn off all the lights, they put their special content down. And this takes me to audiophiles, right? Who turn off the lights, put in their special jazz music, where in this song, you can hear a difference between a $10,000 speaker and the $8,000 speaker, or the $7,000, or the DAC that's $20,000 and the DAC that's $3,000, right? When we've come to the point where we can say, hey, really for $500, it's convenience. The stand, I think that C1 with its stand ends up being the deal maker for me. Just because it has a stand, that's enough for me. Because the minor improvements on the other stuff, it's like, but that's it. It's like slightly brighter and it has no stand. Not going to go out and buy a wall mount. Whereas
I really like,
you could do either.
And I like the form factor of the C1. It's just a really cool looking TV, you know, especially on a stand, you know. And then the other thing that I like about the Sonys is that if you don't have them on a stand, if they're on the wall, then they have the speakers that sound better on the wall, because you lose the stand, or the G1 also fires down and the sound just doesn't come at you. So sometimes you lose when you're trying to listen to a show or something, you can't hear the voices. But the A80J and A90J, that sound is coming directly at you and it just sounds so much better.
Yeah. I think,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, just talk about audio. I think Sony upgraded their audio in their entire lineup this year, because I didn't expect good audio out of the X80J. I expected what I got from the Samsung Q60A, like, oh, you know, okay, it's a TV, crappy audio, whatever, right? But the X80J is like, wow, this audio is better slightly than the Hisense U6G, which I know Hisense, because they have lower margins, they're going to put more in things like audio, and the Sony matched the Hisense. I was like, okay, Sony, they really have done a phenomenal job of upgrading their audio from the X80J on up. So that needs to be recognized, because I know we trash on Sony a lot, because you could tell it's a lot of lazy engineering sometimes, but they did a good job with audio, I think.
Well, here's another opportunity to trash on that then. Are you guys going to check out the 100-inch X92? Be very curious. Is it a Master Series?
It is not a Master Series.
I didn't think it was.
No, it is an X90J at 100 inches. That's all it is.
So I think who was talking about it? Was it Brian at Whisper Status? I think was talking about.
Brian's going to show it.
I think I caught his live stream. I think I caught his. I don't know. Maybe I was on a live stream. Now I'm confused. I don't know where I was. I heard him. Maybe it was with keep it classy tech. But I remember Brian saying that basically people are just buying this because it's the TV, it's the size, it's the only thing that comes in 100-inch. So
That's it.
you know, why not drop 20 grand? If you have 20 grand and burning a hole in your pocket because you're a millionaire and you go into the store, it's the only one that they have, you know, or maybe that was an injection. I don't know. Anyway, someone said that. I understand that. But if anyone came into a store and tried to buy that TV, I'd be like, hold on. Buy a projector, buy a really nice like Screen Innovation screen or whatever, you know, and set yourself up. But anyways, I am not going to check that out unless one of my clients has it, but there's just no way I would fork over 20 grand to review this TV.
And really, there's nothing to check out other than it's 100 inches. But now you just look at the amazing size. But as far as image quality, it's not saying it's a good looking image either. It's just 100 inches of LCD TV, which is very unique, right? And, you know, in a dark room, great. So if you imagine just stacking 4 X90Js, one on top of the other at maybe the 50-inch size, right? Then you have 100. I mean, that's your visual experience. It's that level of image quality, all the issues that X90J has that makes it a lesser TV compared to the Q90T or the X950H is going to apply to this 100-inch TV as well. It's just larger. It's just more of it physically. So I can't think of a use case in terms of image quality beyond, I just want a large TV that's super bright. And that's the thing. HDR on this TV should be okay because on a projector, even at 100 inches, 120 inches, projector technology is not going to compete with HDR specular highlights on an LCD TV. Not yet. So short of a laser projector, which I don't even know if it could compete with this at this point either. That's about it. But I know people buying this are not looking at the specs the way we're talking about it. Like you said, right? Hey, no one else on the block has it. I got 20 grand. It goes with my Lamborghini. I'll take it.
Yeah. Does it still have like 32 dimming zones on this massive thing too, you know?
Yeah, exactly. How many dimming zones? Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's crazy. So that was interesting. Anyways. Yeah, we have some other comments. Or obviously, you can feel free to keep going. I just, yeah, there's another funny question about size. What is the deal with having 55, 65, 77, 83? Can we just go up by tens? You know, what's funny about that is, you know, 10 years ago, they had like everybody had their own size. So Vizio had 39-inch and Sony had 40-inch and Samsung had 42. And you know what I mean? And LG had 45. And it was ridiculous. I mean, you couldn't compare any TV.
Oh, yeah.
And it must just be kind of a, you know, kind of a, logistics and kind of like figuring out solution. Yeah, exactly. To standardize it.
Because of this question, I'm on Amazon. There's a Samsung 82-inch, a Samsung 86-inch, from the same company, right? But and part of it is they're not manufacturing their own LCD panels for the most part. So it's whatever these suppliers come up with, and they're going to cut it. That gives them the most breakdowns. So let's say if they're supplying 21-inch VA LCD panel, you got 21, 24, 27. They're looking at multiples that if they keep on getting larger and larger, they could break it into smaller panels that could be monitors and TVs and these super large 86 inches. But that's why they want to reduce waste. And when they cut it, you end up with these. And these numbers aren't even accurate. It's like rounded up, right? And maybe 82 point something, whatever. They always round up to the nearest inch to give you that extra size.
And this other question on that 100-inch, it doesn't have Master Series quality control. Well, first of all, it doesn't. But then secondly, a lot of people are having problems with TVs that do have Master Series quality control. You know, like there's a lot of A90Js that are Master Series that are coming with a lot of uniformity issues. You know, I had that on a 65-inch, but I did not have that on my 83. So the 83 looks good, which that's awesome because when you get the big TV, you're really hoping that it comes clean, you know?
Yeah. And that's the thing is it's the larger it gets, the less likely it'll be clean. It's just statistically, it's really hard to get it clean at all. And when it's large, they're not going to trash a large TV because it's so expensive. So they're going to have to let more through the door than they normally would on a smaller size. I mean, that's probably why it's 20,000. They probably eliminated a couple of them.
Yeah. They get one of every two out the door.
And well, if people are going large, right? And I'm just looking at the largest TV you can get, 85-inch, for under 2,000. It appears that Samsung is dominating this market to me. I'm looking at whether it's the AU 8000 or the TU 8000. The other TV makers, with the exception of TCL, they don't have many in the 85-inch size. And I know LG will be introducing their 85-inch size, but even the TCL 85-inch 4 series, right? It's 1,800, but at least it reduces your selection and makes it easier to talk about, hey, it's either TCL or the Samsung or maybe a Sony X90J or something, right? There's not as much confusion, I think. But the problem is no one's going to sit there and review 85-inch TVs. So it's still a crapshoot. You can't extrapolate the quality of the 50-inch version to the 85-inch version. You just can't. And I think that's where we're going to fall short as reviewers. You can't extrapolate that. All I could do is go by, Samsung has a reputation or Sony has a reputation, but what does that really mean? So I feel bad that on the 85-inch recommendations, it'll be hard for us to really stick to any pricing or value recommendation at this size.
Yeah. This is funny question from Andy Kills You, I guess is his name. He has good questions. My A90J has one dead blue subpixel. So it's interesting to me. I want to know how he found that out. Like, does one pixel not turn blue? Like it looks.
Well, if it's dead, then it's black.
But I mean, like just the subpixel, the blue subpixel.
Right, is off, right? So maybe if it's only red and green, it's a different color. So you
That's
look
so
close,
weird.
wait a minute, this is like, what is it, magenta? What? And then you look closely, oh my gosh, it's a dead
I
blue.
guess it's better than it being dead, but still, it's hard enough to find one dead pixel, let alone figure out if there's one pixel that's like the wrong color. That's messed up.
And I think Best Buy, you have to have over a certain number depending on the size of the TV. So they won't even take it as a return. One dead, deal with it. Too bad.
Yeah, he said it's not too bad. You can't really notice, but he notices. Yeah, if you look for issues, you'll find them typically.
Oh yeah, I mean, dead pixels or banding, it'll never be perfect, and I don't think it ever will. But if you just sit far enough, everything looks good. Or if you turn the lights on a little bit more, everything looks good.
We also had a question. Wait, where was it? Oh yeah, he also had mentioned coming out so late in the year, it might not even be worth buying the X95J because, maybe next year. I mean, the improvement on the X90J is pretty impressive.
Yeah,
I was hoping to get that as the next TV that I review, just because that was the only thing that really bothered me about the X90J last year or the X900H was that it just didn't seem very bright. It had good color, but it just wasn't very bright. So if that has a significant improvement this year to kind of match up with the H or the U8G or be relatively close. That was a kind of a really close comparison last year. The X900 or even the X950H and the H9G were really close in quality, but one was so much cheaper than the other,
Well, Andy brings up a really good question about waiting for next year's TVs. So I want to address that because a lot of people who are waiting for a Sony, like, wait, should I just wait for 2022 Sonys then? So this is what's going to happen though. If you've noticed, even this year, Sony repurposes TVs. The X91J, that's the 75-inch TV, I think, version. It's actually the X900H relabeled. So if Sony has problems manufacturing and getting volume out the door this year, all they're going to do is sell you the exact same TV next year with a different name. Because they have kind of... This year has been a special year for all the TV makers. So if they didn't get the volume out this year, they're not going to invest more money on an all-new lineup next year if they haven't amortized and paid off the cost of developing this year's TVs. They may just repurpose the exact same TVs and roll it out again next year, which is what they used to do 20 years ago. 20 years ago, there wasn't an annual update of TV models, right? Or 30 years ago, you really have the same TV out for maybe 3 years before you had a major update. So Sony may end up going back to that next year, and we won't see a significant upgrade in its LCD TVs until 2023. So I'm going to bank on the 2022 Sonys being pretty much similar to the 2021. The XR chip was the big difference, and maybe they'll make more X80J's VA panels, maybe. But the shortages this year really compromised their ability to sell quality TVs across all the model lineups. Everyone's going IPS this year, right? Or they have some models that's mostly IPS. I think it could be a shortage of VA panels. I mean, look at Vizio. They totally walked back and denigrated all their TVs this year because they don't have the parts to sell you better TVs, and the price has gone up. So this is almost like a reboot year for 2022. I think that I don't know. I don't expect much out of 2022.
Well, here's a good question then. Back on that, people are definitely interested in the QNED as well. It's again, July is halfway done and heard nothing about QNED. So what's going on there?
Okay, so I'm assuming you're talking about LG's QNED. So the LG QNED release is this month, right? It should be out, but it's not. No surprise, just like everyone else. I think they're trying to get it into reviewers' hands. Now, I don't have the QNED. I'm reaching out to Robert because I buy the TVs myself, with the exception of maybe TCL Hisense. Sometimes they send me TV if they have it ready to go. But as far as LG is concerned, I'm just like you guys. I'm waiting to hear how good the QNED is. And then if it's really good, I may end up getting the QNED 90. Now, the QNED 99 is an 8K, but it does have better panel technology, which I think is a pity that they didn't apply it to the 4K model. But yeah, I'm still waiting. It's supposed to be out like anytime this week. So we'll see. Do you know any reviews with the QNED 90 or 99, Brandon?
No, I haven't. And I typically don't really care, to be honest, either. But, you know, it's funny. I'm trying to be fair. I really, like, I am starting to become kind of an OLED snob. But, you know, I want to get some LED TVs. I want an LED to surprise me. You know, I'd be interested.
Yeah.
But real quick, if we could, I appreciate everybody being on for this first live stream on Pass the Remote here, where we're going to do all of our live streams. So you guys have one spot for all the TV and anything with the remote, news on anything with the remote. But if you guys could hit the like button real quick, to spread the love a little bit. And, you know, also if you have an opportunity of following on social media, whoops.
That was me. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. No worries. And if you guys have a social media, you can throw like the link to this or after the fact, or just to our channel, spread it out there, spread the love. People will jump on. I'm sure we'll start getting the same following, but this is good because you guys can ask any question you want right now without any super chats because it's not monetized yet. So go ahead and just
that's right.
ask us any questions while we're getting it. So we'll be happy to answer questions. So thanks for hitting the like button, and make sure you subscribe to it too. I can see I'm not subscribed to it as Be the Installer. So now I just did. There you go.
I just did as well. Yeah. Thanks everyone. And that's the thing is we also want to use this channel to do like Black Friday deals or whatever, right? When we have special events where a collaboration does the event justice more than one individual can, we're going to do it on this channel as well. So, you know, it's just something to add dimension to the YouTube sphere of content out there. It's all about content diversity, everyone.
Any questions you saw that you want me to pop up here? I can just pop through. Keep going through.
Let's say, okay, Brad Smith is saying that Brian says next weekend on the QNED, reviewers are getting them now. And it was on Best Buy website last night, both models. So there you go.
Oh, there you go.
It's out. And I, for one, this is not a TV that I'm going to buy early myself, only because LG needs to prove to me that they're doing something special with IPS panels. And, you know, we'll see. And maybe it's the 50-inch panel that ends up being special. If there's a QNED 90 of the 50-inch size, maybe a VA with all that magic. Who knows, right? I might end up getting that one.
Let me ask people here. Maybe they can respond in the comments. What would they rather see me review? A Nano TV or X95J or X90? Which one should I review next? Because I'm kind of searching for an LED TV that maybe can give it a run for the money on some of these other ones. So let me know in the comments if you guys think I should do one of the the QNED 99? Is that that's the 8K. Nano 99?
So that's the Nano 99 is an 8K without mini LED. The QNED 99 is an 8K with the mini LED, and the QNED 90 is the 4K with the I'd say a tier lower processor, less dimming zones, also IPS panel, and the Nano. I think this year they call it the Nano 95. Anytime you hear Nano, it's their old technology without any mini LEDs. I'd stay away from anything Nano myself because it's not going to get bright enough for those of you who want Basically, an OLED. If you're getting a nano, the nano is not brighter than the OLED. That's the thing. It's like it doesn't have a reason to be for me.
Well, it looks like the X95J is the winner anyways. I definitely am going to review the X95J. I was definitely interested in that. And, you know, it could be an opportunity to check out the versus the QN98 because it is pretty difficult to do QLED versus OLED videos because they are so different. Yeah. But it's a little easier to take two QLEDs and then say, listen, if you're not an OLED guy and you have a bright room or whatever, which one of these two LED TVs is going to be better? And, that would be interesting. Definitely.
Yeah. I too am going to get the X95 only because I'm not going to get both the X90 and the X95. So between the two, last year I got the X900H. So this year we'll try the X95 at its smallest size, which is a 65-inch. That's another thing that kind of bothered me. Is like, man, 65 inches, but there is no margin in anything smaller. So you guys are seeing that the smaller sizes, they're cutting a lot of features that you take for granted because there's no margin in it for the TV makers. So it's an afterthought, the smaller sizes.
Maybe we'll have to figure out a plan to share those too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I know. Well, I have the Q60A and the U6G.
Yeah. Well, no, I saw that. I was just like, do I really want to drive up there for one of those? I'm thinking
exactly. Yeah.
I think that was a great review and a good comparison, though. It's tough. And I'm sure you thought about making reviews for each of them and were like, yeah, do I really want to make a review for each?
Because it ends up being people want to compare it to something else anyway, right?
Yeah. That's a good point. Hard to be like, okay, it's good and it's in this range. So then what? Then what's your recommendation, right? It's like, okay, even like Ratings does that so well where they'll have a number and then that number correlates with then what is a better deal? Like they even just like, I thought that their U7G review, is that right? U7G.
The U7G, the new one.
I'm getting an upgrade. It was an upgrade over the last, and it was better than the U8G, or I'm sorry, the H8G of last year. It scored better.
Yes.
Which is impressive because now Hisense has two TVs over 8.0, which is not easy to do, I mean, last year Samsung had two, but I don't think this year they're going to have two, right? 4K.
QNED is the only one that I can. Well, hey, that brings up a good comment. Bat Tech right here. I want Brandon to re-review the QN90A.
I know.
Is that going to be on your short list of things to do, my friend?
Him and Rainer both. I keep like we got a lot of stuff going on. So I think I'm going to be going to CEDIA, so that's coming up. I have a vacation. I have a vacation before that to New York. I'm probably going to try to stop into Value Electronics. My camera's going to die here. I might lose video. I might have to switch batteries out. And then in addition to that, we're like trying to meet up and we're trying to do all this other stuff. So it's like, man, we're going to have a hard time getting all this stuff done.
Well, that kind of takes us to what we're planning for the future, because you're talking about CEDIA and here, let me take my thing off real quick. There we go. Okay. Oh, hey, real quick, I was going to answer the question just below Bat Tech about the subwoofer. I have to brush up my subwoofer response.
Right here?
Yes, for a medium-sized room, should I purchase a SB3000 or a PB2000 Pro? The PB2000 is a ported sub. A ported sub is going to get you more extension. Now the SB3000, so you have to ask yourself, if you're sitting alone in a room and it's only for you, I'd always go with the sub with the deepest extension. And I don't have the extension numbers with me, but you can always adjust for flatness on your AVR side or on the app. And the PB2000 Pro has the app. I'm not certain if the SB3000 does or not, but as long as it has the app, you'll get flat all the way down to whatever its lowest extension is, but you want to go as low as you can. And if the SB3000 goes lower, I'd go with that one. If the PB2000 Pro goes lower, I'd go with that one. Because at the end of the day, that's what you're really paying for with a subwoofer, because it's really hard to get it low and controlled. And with the app, I think that SVS makes it easier to do that. But that's actually a good problem to have. But maybe it ends up being size, right? The sealed subs are a little bit tighter and smaller. So, but for one position, it'll sound good, but everyone else will have just all over the place bass response. And they may not care. Like my kids don't care. So I only do it from my position.
And then you also have, I'm sure you would recommend also to take a peek at like the monolith subs from Monoprice too, right?
Absolutely. So this is the thing about SVS. They have great app to tune the sub, and Monolith does not have that. But if you have an AVR that you're using to integrate it anyway with the rest of your system, then the Monolith is fine. And I would choose the Monolith because of that. But if it's a 2-channel system where, or your AVR just doesn't do a good job and you want to rely on the app itself, then SVS gives you better fine tuning of the individual sub because of its app. The Monolith doesn't have an app. It relies wholly on your system, AVR or processor. But yeah, I would personally go with a Monolith for the same price because the 12-inch and the 15-inch or even the 10-inch, man, those things are just giant killers for what you're paying for. And it has the same performance as the best in its size.
Here's a good question real quick, or a comment. Live streams are great, but sometimes I wait for the recap due to time. We'll probably go through and timestamp all of these too. The goal is to grow this channel, obviously. So if you like live streams, I'm sure we can make it work. Well, we'll take turns maybe timestamping these and making sure that we hit the relevant points in each, because who can watch 2 hours at a time, right?
And Prairie Polar Bear brings up a great point that I've been thinking about is if I timestamp everything, it's easy to go back and compress a 2-hour live stream into a 20-minute live stream, choosing the highlights, getting out a lot of the noise and the technical issues, and then just speeding it through to the conclusion. Question, answer, laughter, question, answer, laughter, right? 20 minutes of that. And that brings a good question. What is a good time? 20-minute? A 20-minute recap? A 10-minute recap? What do you think, Brandon? I mean, I don't know. Like, what do you think the audience would want?
Well, I think that people are typically down to be like, okay, I'm coming on YouTube for technology. I could go like 15 minutes or less, probably, something like that, or under 20 minutes. So if they're here for a live stream, it's good because you can ask the questions. But if you're watching it post, I normally get like on average for the live streams, 15 minutes. So if you can press it down to the best 15 to 20 minutes, I think that's a good time, I think that would work for most people.
This is a great question right here. I don't know if it's up yet. Corey Johnson asked a question about Dolby Vision. Do I need Dolby Vision? I think it just popped up right there.
I got it. I got it on the screen.
All right. Okay. So this is a really good question because I do notice the difference. And it is a pleasant difference. But, and we're talking Samsung really, right? So Dolby Vision is great, but 2 things have to come into play. First, if your TV doesn't get bright enough, even if it has Dolby Vision, it still looks too dark. So we're talking X90J Sony, right? That's the minimum brightness, or the U6G from Hisense. As you get dimmer and dimmer, Dolby Vision actually does it a disservice. It becomes too dark, and you'll be better off going straight up SDR without any HDR. So if you go on ratings and your TV has an HDR peak brightness of under 400, let's say, under 500, under 400, it'll look better in SDR, which makes Dolby Vision a moot point. So Dolby Vision, I would say, is reserved for TVs above 1,000, where it hits peak brightness of 700 to 800 nits. Now we're talking. So it takes us to Samsung versus everybody else. Samsung does a phenomenal job with HDR10, just standard HDR. I think it does it as well as anybody out there. But then with Dolby Vision content, like streaming on Netflix, on the Samsung, it feels a little soft. It feels a little too warm. I prefer Dolby Vision version of Netflix on any other TV. It's very consistent, whether it's a Sony or a Hisense or a TCL. They look very similar because Dolby Vision takes complete control of the color and the brightness. And Samsung, I think for Netflix, if you're a Netflix fan, you watch Netflix most of the time, I wouldn't get a Samsung because the Dolby Vision on Netflix is phenomenal. They really did a great job of making it look better. And I'm talking about things like The Witcher, right? Where Dolby Vision effects really look impressive. They have a lot of great scenes where you have bright highlights, dark, or during the day. And on Dolby Vision enabled TVs, it looks balanced. On the Samsung, it's way too warm. And this is Samsung trying to do its thing, but Dolby Vision However, the format is on Netflix, it's screwing it up for the Samsung. So if you get a Samsung, you might have to get it calibrated specifically for Netflix. And I don't know if that's possible. So my position is, depending on your budget, if it's high enough, the answer is yes. If it's low, it doesn't even matter. Below a certain price point, Dolby Vision is irrelevant. Just watch it in SDR, and it looks fine to me.
Yeah, and this is all true, people, because look, the TV right behind me here, the Samsung frame, it is like that, FOMO. This 500 nit machine behind me, the frame, it looks better on SDR than it does HDR. It really does. The HDR, it's hard to see things in the shadows, man. It's really hard. But when you're watching just cable, you're watching sports, gaming on this TV, I love it. It looks fantastic. And the art looks fantastic. So as you said, it kind of brings together a few points. This TV was bought because of the art, but then it also is pretty good for SDR at that 500 nits. It's fine. HDR, it doesn't really do it for me, you know?
And that goes back to my review of the cheaper TVs. The X80J in HDR, it was meh, color looked great, but it didn't like stand out. When you go to SDR, it was so good. And that's why I was saying, wow, a VA panel, just a basic VA panel. So this X80J 50-inch size is as basic of a VA panel as you can get. Then Sony goes in and does its color science for SDR. And this is a TV I expect from a Sony, a budget Sony. This is it. I would pick this TV for SDR content over anything else out there, because 700 is a little bit premium, but I can see what you're paying for. But if I'm trying to watch HDR content, I would choose the Samsung Q60A, Q70A, anything, because Sony, you really have to go OLED, or at least the X90J to justify the HDR, to feel the HDR really. So
there's the question to that comment you just made. That's the TV you would go with. And then he said, what about the TCL 5 series in that shootout? Because he said, yes, please.
Yeah. So at the end of my video, we had the $500, sub $500, which was the U6G, and the TCL 5 series is actually $600. And my question is, could the TCL 5 series for an extra $100 bring something more that allows people to save a little bit of money, right? Because 700 is still 700. Maybe at 600, you're saving $100. You're saving maybe 15, 18% of the price. I think it's worthwhile. So yeah, I will look for a TCL 5 series to go against the Sony X80J 50-inch. And really, it is going against the strength of the Sony. Can both these TVs in SDR, is there a difference? And I think I'm going to have to keep the Q60A just to compare for HDR performance. But the U6G at the 50-inch, honestly, it could be a bad TV, personally, because it did not match up at all with what ratings showed. So I don't know. Maybe the 50-inch size is just underperforming. Maybe I have a bad TV. But regardless, I'll just keep the Q60A and the X80J, and then the TCL 5 series will at some point come in just in time for Black Friday, because I think that's a great budget shootout now, where you have 600 versus 700. And to me, that's close. That means that TCL is giving up the margin to fight with the best. Hey, thanks, Jay, for that. Yeah,
hit that like button. I asked Prairie Polar Bear which TV he has, because his question is, how are the internal apps and Netflix and Disney Plus on the big three? He has a Sony, and he's disappointed. I have to say, I'm not like too disappointed on them, but they definitely look better on my Apple TV. I mean, they do look better. I'm spoiled in that I have OLEDs, and then I have an Apple TV to display Dolby Vision just on its home screen, let alone in the content. So I'm a big fan of the Apple TV, and other people are talking about having like the Video Shield and all that. But I was curious on what he had. Go ahead.
But no, I completely agree. I think our position, you, myself, Brian, almost everyone out there, is a $60 Roku Ultra or $40 Fire Stick 4K HDR is going to be better, sadly, than any internal app from Samsung, LG, or Sony. For whatever reason, the image quality on the external streamer from any of the big ones, right? Roku, Fire, or Chromecast, Google TV, Apple TV, and Video Shield. Generally, I have felt that the quality on those streamers, HDMI, is better. And I think partly because it's connecting through HDMI. You're getting a better bit rate through HDMI. because internally, we don't know what the heck they're doing. What is the bit rate internally? What are we getting internally on those apps? And I think the processing on the HDMI port is going to be better overall because they're supposed to be processing the best 4K UHD player through HDMI. So you'll get the best processing through that port than if you did internally, which would have inconsistent system on a chip processing, which may be good, maybe not, because I know Sony internal apps have not been satisfying this year for many people.
Yeah, and that's what he said. He has 2 years ago. He has the 900 series from a couple years ago, which did not have TV-led Dolby Vision, right? So that was even worse. So yeah. I mean, I think that when you to make kind of like button up that point too. I like some of the things that are on the OS, but not the apps. Like I like Tizen. I like the picture-in-picture this year. And I like the art mode that they have and ambient modes on all 3 TVs. But yeah, I basically don't look unless I'm in a pinch or, on the LG, we'd watch Netflix or, Disney Plus. But for the most part, even the PS5 or the X Series X or just other things, we just don't really use those apps, internal apps or whatever.
Yeah. And I think
here's another one too, real quick. I don't like the Bravia Core either, to be honest. It may have a good picture quality, but it still is just a basic app. It like when you fast forward and rewind, you can't see where you are in the movie. It needs some work. So maybe, a couple firmware updates on Bravia Core, and they could make it look a little better, like give you that kind of visual update of where you are in the movie as you're rewinding and fast forwarding. And there's not a lot of content on Bravia Core either. I mean, the Sony library for me, I have all these movies on other things. So it's just like, I just didn't like Bravia Core. Definitely looks good though. I can agree to that. It looks good.
And that's another issue is not all the titles on Bravia Core has that level of picture quality, right? No. Some of them are 4K, some of them are 1080p. I mean, it's like so inconsistent. I wanted to address a question that came right after Prairie Polar Bear's question about the internal apps at 1251. It's just below his question about 75, 85-inch bright room under 5,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great question because this is a reasonable budget, right? Sometimes we get, hey, for $1,000, what's the best 85-inch TV I can get? I'm like, man, whatever you can get for $1,000 85-inch, that's it. But at 5,000, and you're in a bright room, so that's very helpful. Z8H is super bright, and I think this is a great TV because it has darkroom issues. It's lifted blacks, a little bit of blooming, but in a bright room, all that's irrelevant. This will be a great and phenomenal TV for a bright room at under $5,000 now. But you're also in the same ballpark as the QN90A, 75 inches under 5,000 now. So here's the difficult part for me. The Z8H is an 8K TV. That means you're shortchanging a lot of technology and obstacles to get there. It's putting out a lot of energy to give you that brightness. It doesn't have to, but it has to, right? Because it's 8K pixel density requires all that energy. I'd go with a 75-inch QN90A. I think that it's bright enough for your bright room. The Z8H is probably brighter, but I think the QN90A will be a better experience for you for under $5,000.
And, that kind of ties into another question here. Would you guys start looking at 8K models, not because of the 8K, but because of the panel technologies? And it kind of like, it's similar in that, these are expensive TVs and things to consider when buying a large TV. What do you think about that? I mean, I don't really care about 8K because of that, because there isn't anything in 8K. And in the US, there's not a ton of upgrades, but there is some like extra dimming zones. But then was it the power and like the fact that they have to be energy efficient that they're not able to then power those dimming zones or what?
So this has been my issue starting last year. So last year I got the Q900TS 8K TV, not because it's 8K, and I explained it very clearly. It was because last year Samsung's best TV was an 8K TV. Nothing to do with 8K. The Q90T to me was a huge insult to people who were loyal to the 4K Q90R, expecting great things, and then they got the Q90T. This year's Q90A should have been last year's Q90R, but regardless, I had to get the Q900TS because that was its best technology. So this year, I kind of learned my lesson in many ways. First of all, the reason why the 8K TV requires better technology, better panel technology, is they have to overcome a lot of obstacles of an 8K panel. That's why it requires better processing, better AI, more brightness, but all to do what? To deliver an image quality that's as good as a 4K TV. And so until the 8K image quality exceeds the 4K image quality, it doesn't make sense for us to review an 8K TV. Like this year, Samsung did the right thing. The QNED was a match for the 8K TV in terms of core technologies, right? With the exception of dimming zones, not as many dimming zones, but the QNED ends up being a better TV. This is insane. The 4K TV, QN98, is a better looking TV than the much more expensive QN900A. So as long as that continues to be the case, where when the best technologies are somewhat shared by the 4K TV, 8K will never exceed it in image quality. Until it exceeds it, and that would probably be maybe the LG OLED 8K. That would be a TV that truly is the 8K is better than the 4K, but that's what, $20,000. So it's not in our wheelhouse anytime soon, but it may be 2024 until 8K finally exceeds 4K. And that's because the TV makers refuse to invest the same technologies into 4K. That'd be the only reason.
And then here's a good question right on that, or answer. You know, they got the 85-inch QN90A for $3,500 on Prime Day. So think about that.
Great price.
You know, can you pay? What is the Q900 is like $8,000 or $9,000? I mean, and it's not an OLED, and it doesn't. So we're talking about these issues: the dimming, the uniformity, the blooming, it not being an OLED, and then now it's $9,000. And so, luckily, I don't think Rainer's on here to give me a hard time because he would probably say it's worth it. But I mean, it's hard to justify $8,000 for any TV.
It is.
And especially if it's not got pixel level control, and I would take 1,000 nits and, the infinite contrast over trying to mess around with, 1,500 dimming zones and figure all that out or whatever it is.
I think this is such a good price for 85-inch flagship 4K.
Yeah, it's hard to beat, man. That's tough. Dude. Yeah.
And this is the best 4K TV out this year, right? It's better than the X95J. X95J is not engineered or designed to even match the QN90A. This is it, right? Samsung stands alone this year in its 4K LCD TV and brightness. I mean, that's just an amazing price.
This is the one benefit here, which is it does have 4 HDMI 2.1s. I think it has the One Connect too, right? Even in the US or not?
Well, so yeah, all 8K TVs in the US have the One Connect box, and all the One Connect boxes in Europe or anywhere in the world, 4K is going to have 4. And so that's the thing.
This Samsung frame is repurposed, as you had said before. This is the old One Connect box. For the new Samsung frame, it does not have the new One Connect box. And I'm assuming a lot of people on this stream don't really care about the Samsung frame, but I just wanted to let people know. I do a lot of Samsung frame videos, and I was disappointed to see that this TV had the old One Connect box because it's like 14 inches wide, and it barely fit inside this little grand box that I put in the wall. It was massive.
Oh, I want to address this one. This just popped up with Monster Lava. This is a great comment. So, hey, FOMO, dual cell just dropped to 1175 in Australia. So ordered one firmware update seems to have fixed all issues. Basically, no complaints last couple of months. Hopefully, the US version will be good. So Hisense reached out to me and asked me to clarify with me and said, look, our TV designed for the US is a significant upgrade and much different than what we've been releasing in other regions. So let's get it out and we'll make the corrections when you get the specs, but trust us, it's a much better TV than what others have been saying in the past. So I said, you know what? You guys have been straight with me before. Right? So I unlisted that TV, the dual cell, right, already. I was like, okay, you know what? If you guys are going to tell me that, expect the best out of this dual cell. Done. So there's telling us that it's going to be brighter than what everyone's seen before, and it's not shared by the other regions, including Australia. So, Monster Lava, if you are enjoying this dual cell, my expectation is the US dual cell is at least as good, if not better. So we'll see. Maybe still in the running, but the pricing is still questionable. At 75 inches, it's over $3,000, man. I don't know. A lot of people I think will still go OLED. But so Brandon, what would get you to get the 75-inch dual cell instead of a similarly priced 77-inch OLED?
I mean, it would be tough, man. I mean, I don't even know if I would. I would be very hesitant to try it, but I mean, I'd be willing to try it. But really, for me, the thing is that getting the black level down, you know, similar to OLED, and also to be able to view it from angles, because that's one of my pet peeves. Is like, you know, we always have the TV kind of angled one way or the other. In the kitchen, we're watching it, or we're watching it. I have to see somewhat of a decent picture from an angle, you know. But I would say for Monster Lava, man, any TV that's relatively good priced in Australia, I would get, because I know how bad the prices are in Australia.
Oh,
so
yeah.
they have it's brutal. It's like, I think that they said the like the G1 is like, oh, it's more expensive or similarly priced to the A90J, or it's like the prices are ridiculous. Or I think that the G1 is more expensive by a long shot over the Sony A80J, and it just doesn't make any sense. I get confused sometimes in looking at those prices. They send them to me and it's like, oh, it's $10,000 for like a, you know, a C1 or something like that. And I'm like, damn, so expensive. So yeah, if you got a good TV and a good price, just get it. Don't have any FOMO.
Yeah. Well, and okay, so that's something that I thought about a lot too, is after I finished my, you know, cheap, affordable TV review under $700 and the X80J and the Sony, I thought, you know, I would be completely happy with a 65-inch version of the X80J. And let's say I just watch SDR. I can't afford HDR content. It still looks good enough. I think we're definitely spoiled, because I'm staring at the X80J and going, you know, this actually looks really good. And my wife was watching, goes, yeah, there's nothing wrong with this TV. Of course, it was an SDR, right? But she's like, this is a great looking TV. Why is it so inexpensive? And in our push to get Dolby Vision and all these things, right, we lose sight that if you bring it down to an even playing field like SDR, where 200 nits is enough, suddenly a TV like the X80J is as good as a $2,000 TV, because you've taken its brightness down to where the X80J can actually match it. And for SDR, you know what? In a dim room, 200, 300 nits is all you need. And I thought, okay, we definitely have come to the point where I think this is a golden age of TVs. You're really not getting ripped off spending $700 on a good SDR TV if you can't afford HDR to begin with, because for whatever reason, SDR is good enough, broadcasting cable, you'll be completely happy with a TV like the X80J at 60 hertz motion. Because I thought its motion, actually, I was impressed. It did eliminate a lot of the stuttering that was there before in lesser TVs. So Sony did a good job this year with their 60 hertz TV.
And Bat Tech says that in Australia, you're supposed to go to the beach, not sit inside and watch TV. I mean, I live right next to the beach, and to be honest, I don't get to watch a whole lot of TV. I watch it at night, but you're right. We do get spoiled because we're in this weird time right now. You said the golden age of TV, which it's a weird time because so we're kind of getting out of cable and we're getting into streaming. Like Space Jam just came out, Dolby Vision, HDR, right?
Yeah.
And so we're like watching family things. But you're right. Like a majority of people, if you still look at the majority of people, they still have cable, and they're still just like I watched one of my guys that I watch on or I follow on Instagram. He just put up like 6 TVs in this guy's house. So, right. You have 6 rooms and you're buying 6 brand new TVs. You probably have a solid amount of money. Right. But every single TV was under like $500. Like it was like a Insignia, then it was like a TU 7100 85-inch, and not one TV was more than like $1,000. I guarantee it. So it's like, yeah, a lot of people are content, and we're talking to the people that are like, you know, they'll tell us, I'm sure David Wieland and all these guys, Bat Tech will tell us, we're all like a bit snobbish about our TVs. We're all trying to get the best TV or close to it. And really, like you said, if you're just watching cable TV, what are you really gonna use the OLED for, right?
Yeah, that's the thing that's like an insult. Is I get a lot of questions from cable owners like, hey, I have this amazing OLED, and everyone says it looks great, but then I'm putting in 4K cable and it's not that great. I'm like, well, that's the problem. You didn't have to get an OLED. I mean, it looks better, obviously, because it's an OLED. You got the deep blacks, but when your bottleneck is the source, whether the garbage in, garbage out, oh man, you're stuck, right? So
that's what I said in my settings video. I said, in SDR, it's like you can like leave off the noise reduction and you can leave off a lot of things. But the problem is that the source typically isn't good in SDR. So then you're like sitting there fighting upscaling and digital noise. And so then, you know, if you add in like the contrast enhancer and you start messing with things, you have so much noise, then you need the different noise filters to kind of like help clean up the picture that you've created, because you've created a worse image on something that's already being upscaled. And to be honest, like Sony TVs, I like Sony for the most part, because I feel like LG, when they upscale, they try to exact it too much. And so you get a lot of edge noise. But when you have Sony, they average it out on the edges. And so if you're right up close to it, it looks a little pixely. But if you back away 6 feet, Sony looks better. It's way sharper, you know, because of that average and just the way that they do their processing, you know.
I couldn't agree more. I felt that I think Sony takes the approach of, we don't have to be cutting edge as long as the image looks good from afar and you don't look too close. It will beat most TVs out of the box. Now, if you go in there, you tune it to an inch of its life, like LG allows you to do, then of course you can get very close to the Sony. But out of the box, if you're not spending another dime on anything, this is it. I spent my wad. This is all I'm going to do out of the box. Sony, more often than not, is going to have the better image, because you don't want to waste your time looking up settings. If you went on Google and typed in settings for LG, oh my gosh, you're going to have to go through how many hundreds of pages on owner forums and Reddit, right? If you don't want to do with any of that, then I would recommend a Sony, just because out of the box looks great. And some Samsungs are like that too. So I think, to be fair, if a lot of, and this is what Brian and you used to say, right? Hey, I don't want to get it calibrated. Just out of the box, how does it look? I think more often than not, the Sony looks great.
And the only thing that I do think, I love LG too, you know, like I like LG TVs. And I've noticed with LG, if you give it like the purest, best source, like if you give it super like great HDR, then it can look really sharp, because like I said, they try to really exact the edges. But yeah, if you start to give it like basketball or whatever, it really breaks apart, and the processing is just not as good. The upscaling and just processing the image in general doesn't look as good. A lot more noise just in general. So, but yeah, they're both, you know, all three of those brands can look really good.
Yeah. And
a lot of people excited to see the X95J.
They are.
A lot of comments.
You know what? I think because the X90J set expectations, right?
Yeah.
The X90J is their mid-tier, lower mid-tier this year. The X95J is supposed to be their flagship 4K, because that's all they have now, right? They've gotten rid of their Master Series LCD TVs. So I have high hopes for it. I'm going to get it. So we'll see how it compares. And I'm going to compare it head-to-head with the QN98, because it's only fair to see, well, what are you losing, right? And X95J, I think, is made for slightly brighter rooms, so that the advantage of the dimming zones is somewhat neutralized. So we'll try it on slightly brighter rooms to see if it's any better. And David has been waiting, though, hasn't he? He's been like between the OLED and the the LCD TV, hasn't pulled the trigger yet.
Yeah, I think he might be a Black Friday purchase. I'm probably, probably he would say that. So. But I would also say that the X wide they're going to have the X wide layer on the X95J. How do you think that will affect the two different TVs? Because they don't have the X wide layer on the X90J, right?
So generally,
do you think the contrast, and do you think the contrast will be a little bit worse than the X90J? Right?
Always, yeah. So here's, generally speaking, any X wide layer, whether it's Samsung or Sony, you're losing a little contrast, you're losing a little color, but you're gaining more wide angle viewing. And that's why IPS always consistently looks a little bit more washed out, but wide angle looks better at extreme wide angles. I really am saddened that the X95J doesn't allow you to turn it off, because if it's a coating, then you can't do anything about it. But if it's a technology that could be processing, I wish you'd be able to turn it off, because on the Samsung, it is mostly processing, right? If you're allowed to turn it off, can you imagine how much better it would look? But they don't want to do that. And Hisense and TCL don't have this extra wide layer, wide angle thing. So their TVs consistently have better color volume / better gamut. And I think it makes a difference for them. They look better because they don't have that. So I don't know. I don't know why people insist, or companies insist, that we need to have extra wide viewing angle. Let us turn it off if we need to.
Here's a good question from Bat Tech. Do you really think VRR is coming this year? Like, I know you want to trust people, right? And you want to, but they haven't been showing it. But like, where do you think it is on that technology? The chip. Do you think it's really coming? Do you think it'll be here this year? Or
okay, so I'm just going to use business decisions have consequences, and when they made these promises, right now they will release it. The question you should ask Bat Tech is, will this VRR be any good? Are you even going to keep it on? Because I'll tell you, Samsung had VRR in 2019 and it was just bad. I mean, it was just crap. People had it off in 2019. People had it off in 2020. In 2021, they finally cleaned it up. Now people have it on. So the answer is yes. Sony's going to release a VRR, but it's going to be crappy. But it doesn't matter because it allows them to avoid the lawsuit. What you want is good VRR. Crappy VRR has been done before, and it was done by Samsung way back when in 2019. That's not what you want. But if that's what you want, just a VRR, Sony could flip the switch right now, and you'll get VRR, and no one's going to use it. But guess what? It avoided a class action lawsuit, and it's quote unquote VRR. I assume you want good VRR that is similar to Samsung's VRR this year, which is what it should have been all along. But it took Samsung how many model years to get it right? I don't know that Sony has that experience, the desire to get VRR up and running on its LCD TVs. So the answer is yes, I think it'll be out. I will bet real money. Maybe this is a good giveaway for the Sony X80J. You don't have it. I must give away the X80J. But at the end of the day, I think it's coming, but I do not think it'll be as good as people hope. That's how they're going to do it.
And then here's maybe something to give Sony people a little bit of a smile. I'm concerned with the rainbow effect. And if I just had to say right off the top of my head, I noticed that the Samsung rainbow effect regarding the reflections is way more aggressive than the Sony. The Sony is like, you can kind of see it rainbow across, but it's not as like, if you have a light on that Samsung, that will just arc across the whole TV. So, you know, Sony has a better, it handles it. So its reflection handling isn't as good because that rainbow effect isn't as aggressive. You know what I mean? So, but yeah. I don't know. It's just something I thought to mention.
Yeah, I have the QNED and I see that rainbow effect all the time. In darker scenes, boom, it's right there. And so like I yell at the kids, close the curtains, turn the lights
off.
Right.
Especially if anybody has like you know, the can lightings, like 10 of them in the ceiling or whatever, then you got to turn all of them off because you're going to see like every one of those and then replicated like a bunch of times. So it'll just be like all over the screen.
Yeah. And well, I think we touched on this earlier. I forgot to pursue it, which was our plans for this year. You said you're going to Cydia, right? What are you expecting out of Cydia? Like, tell me, because I wasn't planning on going. I heard a lot about it, but I don't normally go to these shows.
I mean, to be honest, I'm just kind of going to like see people and make like, you know, make nice and figure out, you know, who's who. I don't do a lot of, you know, I don't do a lot of like AVR videos. I don't do a lot of home control kind of stuff. But it'd be interesting. But I'm just going. It was kind of like I was thinking about bringing those TVs to you and Chana, and then all of a sudden we kind of figured out that it's not going to work the week that I had thought anyways, because we all have stuff. I had stuff. Right. Chana has stuff. You have stuff. And so I got to figure. My main thing is here's the thing. I'm going to be doing a video, kind of like a vlog of like me bringing your TV to you and then driving up to Mammoth to take his C1. That's after I get the 83-inch C1. So I will have both 83-inch TVs in my house. So that can make for a cool video, you know, comparing the bigger TVs and then bringing those up. But then after that, I'm just going to be kind of looking back into comparisons and making sure that we have enough of like the buying decision comparisons. You know, I noticed that sometimes people aren't as interested in certain comparisons that I thought would be more interesting. Like early on, people thought the G1 versus the A90J would be the comparison of the year. Well, I found out that the A80J versus the C1 is the comparison of the year. People want to know between those two relatively similar TVs that are similarly priced from Sony and LG. That's much, you know, it's way more views because people really need to know that kind of buying decision. I think people know if they want a G1 and I think they know if they want a Sony like OLED. So I think that's a little bit different because of the gaming features versus the movie features. But when it comes down to the middle priced OLEDs, I'm getting a lot more traction on those kind of videos. So people just have to let me know in the comments, you know, on my videos here, wherever, what are the videos you guys want to see? Like you said, the X95J and the QN90A. That's definitely sounds like both of us are going to put our thoughts behind that because it's obviously the top 4K Samsung versus the top 4K from Sony LEDs is important and a good video to make. But yeah, that's basically what I'm doing. What about you?
Well, my next big event is CES 2021 because I normally go there anyway. But when I go now, it's like, oh, let's see if they have anything interesting, the audio, visual. But I don't see. Well, actually, this is when we expect LG and Samsung to introduce their cutting edge yet not yet released technologies, which I like to see. And sometimes it never makes it to the light of day, like TCL Vision. that was so much talk and it never came out. And that was because it was so expensive. I didn't realize that was a $15,000 TV technology. There's no way TCL is going to release a $15,000 TV, right? That's what it's selling for in other parts of the world. Well, mostly China. But yeah, so CES is my next big gig. And then, of course, Black Friday. I'm very excited to see what is in store for Black Friday for us this year because I really think the TV companies are going to be aggressive, even with the shortages as they are. I suspect they do want to move a lot of their TVs this year out on Black Friday because maybe these are not the TVs they wanted to sell in the first place. Like Vizio. Oh my gosh. I feel so bad for Vizio. They are just keeping it together to sell any TV this year. But how does that affect other TV makers who want to start the year fresh in 2022? So Black Friday might be a good start for them to start pushing out their inventory this year. So yeah, and then of course I'm going to focus more on a lot of home theater type reviews to balance out my content as well. But,
cool.
Yeah.
Well, good deal. I might have to take off here in a minute, so it probably would be a good time to wrap up if there's any other questions. Do you want to look at anything else, or should we just wrap?
There was one more question I wanted to address real quick. Let me look at it real quick. I saw it here. Oh yeah, it was actually regarding you. Did you ever get the replacement for the damaged 83-inch OLEDs? Are you still waiting? Where is it? People want to know.
Yeah, I don't know where that is. I was trying to find that comment.
Yeah.
How far up was it?
Let me look right here.
It's not the big
119. BatTech 119.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I have not. So that's what we're trying to figure out is this it right here? There.
Yep.
Yeah. So we got both A90Js came in bad shape. Luckily, one survived. So kept that one for me because, if I have two here, I need one of them. I need one of them to work in order to get that video done, to get the videos done. So FOMOs got sent back. Then TechnoDad actually said, I'll take the C1 when it's ready. And so if we're getting the A90J back, I figured get the 83-inch C1 as well. So now the C1 and the A90J are going to be ordered, I think, next week, and they're going to be here, a couple of weeks. So I'll have those two TVs, and then just to find a time when I can take it up to FOMO, his A90J, and then the C1 eventually, once I'm done doing a couple of videos on it, kind of pack it up and drive it up to Mammoth. So yes, the TV was picked up. It did take a couple of weeks for them to pick it up because the company that was supposed to pick it up wasn't, on their game. So it's been a bit of a mess. Hopefully that won't be the case going forward with dealing with this company. But yeah, it was pretty disappointing. But I think it's okay, right, FOMO? Because you didn't really want the TV that fast anyways. You had a lot of things going on.
So because
you were delayed.
My home theater setup, so I'm fine. Like my electrician's coming to set up my ceiling plugs this week. So that's why I was telling him, when you get it, bring it up when it's convenient, and we'll make it happen. So yeah, I'm good.
And the same thing with Jana. TechnoDad is the same way. He's like trying to stall. He's starting back up in the whole wedding DJing business back in the game because he had a whole year off, and like with all these TV companies running out of supply and stock, a lot of people were not working as well. So it's good to get everybody back on, kind of a normal schedule. So it's good that everything is going to happen, and it'll be good to meet you guys in person and do that too. Cause that's another thing. I haven't like gone anywhere in like a year and a half. So it's going to be fun to go to, we're going to New York and DC. So that'll be fun as well. We're going to do that in just like 3 weeks from now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I'll be at the shootout in September, a Value Electronics shootout in September in New York City, or near New York City, at Value Electronics, where we'll have comparisons of these great TVs you've heard so much about. So I will do some footage and get you guys on scene interviews and experience with that. So that'll be in mid-September. So that'll be exciting. Yeah, look forward to that. That'll be my big trip.
I got these airplanes flying. Like, can you hear that?
No, I don't. You did a good job of keeping
these
them out.
airplanes, man. It's like normally it's not as bad on. Not that I remember it's as bad on Saturday, but yeah, we live by an airport. Anyways, I'm gonna sneeze. Maybe not. All right. Well, we should probably wrap, huh?
Yep. And then I will experiment with a summary recap of this video, see what happens. Let me know if it's what you guys want. Yeah. Fun.
Well, thanks for coming in. Bye, everybody. Thanks for doing this. I think it's going to be a cool experience, FOMO. So I'm excited. And yeah, make sure you guys like the video on your way out, and make sure to share it if you can. And we'll make sure to we can post it on our other channels to bring more people in, and we'll get these chats pumping here eventually. So thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. See you guys next time.
Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.